Coming in at number 6 on the best Indian alternative albums of 2017 is a band by the name of Naomi Punk. I first got into them when I saw them live in 2012, opening for Mac DeMarco at DC9 in DC. Their live show was very, very loud, but even though it was loud and very jolting music, it was very melodic and just very pretty music all around. Their guitarist, no bones about it, Mullet, actually made it pretty memorable as well. Yeah, he was hanging out on the rooftop deck after that, just this dude chilling out with a PBR tall boy and a mullet and camo. And I think it's cool when people can, do what they want with their body and their life and all that stuff. And that's exactly what he was doing. And of course, when you make really kick-ass music, it just gives you even more of a license to do shit like that. But Naomi Punk's big album up till this year was called Television Man. I think the title track of it was their kind of calling card as a band as well. Not to say that Television Man isn't a bad album by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely feels like a distillation of the type of loudness and fluid and like loud but really pretty music that they deliver live. 90% of the time that's a necessary evil when it comes to albums of bands that have a really stellar live show, trying to condense that all down into a format where all the instruments play well with each other and all that stuff. Live, it's gloves off. The guitars are loud, the drums are loud, and it's all this one big swell of noise that, once again, Naomi Punk, even though their music's very jolting live, it's very melodic and symphonic even. But yeah, Television Man definitely felt like an imperfect distillation of what they deliver live. Their album this year, Yellow, I don't know if it's any more a good representation of what I feel like their live experience is like, but it is their most ambitious album to date. It's huge. I think it has like 25 tracks on it, a lot of which are a medley of just them noodling around with stuff, live recordings, like them tuning up guitars and stuff. And that said, it's a really difficult album to wade to. I think I've only listened to the whole thing through once, but at the same time, what makes Naomi Punk stand out from a lot of other bands out there is just how slipshod they are. Their drums are simple and the guitars don't hit right on beat. A lot of music personnel have noted that about them, that they're pretty sloppy musicians, and it seems intentionally so. The philosophy of everything being right on the metronome is not something that they abide by. And that's a pretty risky philosophy to have, but it's one that they pull off very, very successfully. Their music hits hard, even though it's really sloppy. And the sloppiness actually just makes it seem very, 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 very human and accessible, as opposed to, perfect machine-like guitar work. It's kind of impossible to talk about Naomi Punk and not talk about guitars as well, just because of how guitar-centric their music is, so I'll just get that out of the way now. Even though Naomi Punk play what I would call heavy music, their guitars are completely clean. Like, the place that their music draws its heaviness from is the rhythmic element of their music and the dynamics, and not the sound of the guitars themselves. In fact, they use like old 1960s style guitars that frankly couldn't be less heavy. These are like jangle pop guitars, but they play really rhythmically complex songs where the emphasis is placed on just how like machine-like the rhythm is. It really calls to mind Godflesh. Imagine Godflesh playing really loud with clean guitars, really drunk, so they're really sloppy. And that's a pretty good indicator of how Naomi Punk sound. And once again, I would say their album this year is the best representation of what they're trying to achieve as a band yet. I think a pretty good metaphor for the Yellow album by Naomi Punk is it's like a group of islands. About 2/3 of it you really have to wade through, and it's really fluid and just kind of flows over you with no real objective. All of the, I guess, noodly, more experimental tracks on Yellow, which is the majority of the album, even though they're noodly, they do seem created with intention and very meticulously sculpted, which to me at least, maybe I'm biased because I've been a Naomi Punk fan for a long time, but I did find the thing very, very interesting to listen to, even the noodly parts, which once again is the bulk of the album. But, so that's the water around the islands. And to get between the different islands, you have to go through that water. You have to go through some noodly tracks. But the songs on the album that are more, I guess, traditional rock songs, like Cookie, I think, is what sounds to me like the single from the album. They are by far the best songs that Naomi Punk have ever done. They're a lot more succinct than the stuff on Television Man. And just the raw ferociousness of them, the lyrics, their lyricist is really, really good. He does a good job of writing abstract lyrics that don't just sound like bullshit that he needed to fill space. I think Naomi Punk's lyrics really fall into two buckets, and a mix of these two elements is present in any given song, but they have abstract imagery that, I don't know, maybe you can't pinpoint what it symbolizes, but it is really cool. Like the lyrics about Chernobyl and flags of fire and stuff. Just really, really cool, like sci-fi trippy imagery all around in their songs. But, if that's all they did, I would be a little bit annoyed by it, because it's like, what's the point of the songs? But the other half of their lyrics are a lot more human. They relate to personal experiences, and they're usually worded in such a way that it's not readily apparent what they're talking about, but you definitely get like images in your head as you listen to their lyrics of like stuff that's happened in your life as a kid and stuff like that, and it's probably happened in everybody's life. Like there's one passage where he's talking about like standing under yellow light, and I don't know, I just got this very vivid image of just being a kid laid out at night and then coming up on the porch and yellow light pouring down on you. But yeah, there are a couple instances like that where the lyrics, even though they're very abstract and trippy, really connect with you at a personal level. And I don't know if there's any other lyricists that I'm familiar with who can do that the way Naomi Punk does. So yeah, I think by a pretty wide margin, Yellow by Naomi Punk is the best album they've done. I think it's intended to be almost like a manifesto of who they are and what their vision is as a band. And I think it achieves that very, very well. It's tough for me to picture them recording an album any better or any more in line with their vision as a band than this one. So, I think this could be the top of the mountain for them. But who knows? I will say that some people won't like Yellow at all, just because of how self-indulgent and inaccessible it is. Like you really have to wade through it to find the good stuff. So perhaps an area of improvement for them for the future is to deliver that same impact and that same personality that they imbibe their music with, but to do it in like a fourth of the time as that it takes them on Yellow. But yeah, certainly worth a couple spins on your record player. I'd highly recommend it. Coming up next on our top 10 list is an artist I haven't been a big fan of up to this point. And who knows, I still might not be a big fan of him, but I think his output this year was undeniably good. We got some King Cruel coming up next on the top Indian alternative albums of 2017. So check that video out next.